Let's talk about your recording process a little bit. You recorded it all yourself at 3 a.m. apparently.
Yeah.
Anything else that you kind of went through? Any discoveries that you want to share while you were recording?
A lot, yeah. You know, I never had any training. I never took any recording industry courses or anything. Um, so basically, the whole time was a learning experience for me. Even pressing record was I had to figure out how to do. So yeah, I mean, I did a lot, as much research as I could on the internet about gear that would work for me, because even before I recorded, I wanted to do it myself for the experience. So I learned about what gear would suit me best for a home recording and for recording guitar. And as far as what I went with, I went with a stereo pair of Neumann's KM184s, and just used an audio interface. And I ended up using a Motu 828 MK3 audio interface, and just ran that into my laptop. And as far as gear, that was pretty much it, And of course, get good microphone cables because you want the sound you end up getting to transmit well. But the reason I went with the audio, there's lots of interfaces out there, and the interface I went with is probably overkill for what I was actually doing. But the reason I ended up going with it, one, it was on sale. It was a pre-release sale of this equipment, and two, it was something I felt I could grow with. If I decided to do chamber music recordings later on and wanted to do it myself, I had that option available to me because it has lots of inputs and lots of options for that kind of thing. But also, I was kind of familiar with the software that it's compatible with, Digital Performer. I'd used that once in a class when I was writing for an electroacoustic music class. I used Digital Performer, and I had a little bit of familiarity with the software, and the stripped down version of it actually came with the interface that I bought. The stripped down version is called Audio Disc. And recording solo classical guitar, all you need is the basic functions. You need stereo, the ability to record in stereo. So that's all I needed. But man, once you get into it, you learn a lot, about yourself as a player, and the actual process of making it happen. I did it in a very small room. Dead sound. I treated all the walls to where there wouldn't be any weird reflections. That was one thing I learned right away. You go record in a live room, like your bathroom or something, you're going to get all these weird reflections coming back into the microphones, and it's just these weird effects that happen that you don't want. So I ended up going into a dead room and recording that way, and that was difficult at first. When I was experimenting and learning how to do it, I was like, man. And I was listening to my recordings and tweaking with the sound, but I was like, man, I'm just not playing inspired at all. So playing in a room like that, you really have to dig deep for the inspiration and do it when you feel inspired to do it, and don't expect a great sound from the room, because it's not going to be there. Other things I learned were I'm not a big mover when I play, but I do move. I sway back and forth. You don't want to do that when you're recording, for several reasons, really. I kept finding these little sounds, for one thing, like the pops, and I thought it was my computer overloading. I thought I was overloading my computer's memory or something, and getting these digital pops, but it was actually ended up being my guitar support suction cup device. And just these little motions, you get this little snap. But with a really sensitive microphone, like the ones I used, it's pretty obvious. It's something you don't really want to put into a release. And another thing about moving, I had the microphones right in the fire. They were about a foot from me, from the guitar. So another thing about moving, besides you might hit the microphones, I kept hearing these these sonic effects, kind of like someone was taking playing with the EQ band as I was playing, running it up and down. And I think that, I'm not an engineer by any means, but I think that was happening because I was swaying back and forth, and the sound was hitting the microphones at different angles and different times. So I was getting these weird effects that way. So I really learned to just sit still, take care of business in one spot. And also things like, I think the last track I did on the CD, we had these huge blizzards this year here, and so I had, no kidding, I had over 2 feet of snow on the roof of my house, and the room was really quiet in all the other recordings, but with all that snow on the roof, you hear the roof actually, cracking under all that pressure, So all these little things happened as I was doing it. And learning experience. I think the next one's going to be a pretty painless process to do.
Yeah. So, what of the stuff that you learned carried over into your concert playing?
My concert playing. Well, actually, one thing I did notice on the last concert I played, a tendency I've had for maybe the past couple of years. I decided not to really plan my interpretations of pieces. I've really found it very interesting just to kind of let the moment dictate the interpretation of the piece. Except if the composer specifically said play this way here.
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of leaving it to the moment. It's for me, if it's a piece I've been working on or playing for a few years, it all of a sudden brings a new aspect to the piece and a new interest for me as a player. So I kind of left interpretations to the moment, spontaneity. But I did notice after I made the CD and I was listening to myself play these pieces, and of course on the CD, the way you played it at that time, that's the way it's going to be. I actually noticed in my last concert, I was playing it like my CD because I listened to it so much that way. Which is not such a bad thing, but that's one thing that carried over. Trying to get my CD out of my head, to continue doing what I was doing, this spontaneous kind of performance. Other things that I learned, with the microphone so close, you can hear everything, as far as the fret noise. When you actually depress the fret, you're going to hear it. And also, even, I know we all work hard to alleviate nail noise from our playing. It's always there to some extent, but it really is magnified when you record it and have the microphones right there. So I think that's something I've benefited from, learning to play with a slightly lighter touch with the left hand and just being a little more careful with the right hand. So just, when I was doing these things, so I didn't have a recording that was just really noisy. But when you play a concert and there's distance between you and the audience, these things aren't obvious. These are things that you hear when your ears up to the up to the guitar. So I think that kind of cleaned my playing up a little bit as far as the noises that happen. Lighter touch left hand and just focusing on really nice plants with the right hand.